Hi everybody, thank you for tuning into today's video for Davenport Perth Early On Child and Family Center. Today's video is focusing on guiding young children's behavior and prevention strategies. My name is Carrie Youdell and I'm a registered early childhood educator. I'm going to be narrating this video today for you. The first thing I want parents to think about when we're preventing and supporting children's behavior is what actually influences a child's development. Age. Age is very important. There's a lot of rapid brain development happening in the first 5 years of life. So we need to look at the age and how that influences a child's behavior. Their level of understanding, the experiences that they've had. Another thing that influences child development is the environment. How do we set up an environment for children to be successful and safe and explore and play positively? And then the other thing that influences child development is the adults who care for them. How we role model, how we're our children's first teachers, how that influences their development. Things we need to remember. As children grow and develop, 95% of their brain is growing between the ages of birth to 5. Children learn by experimenting and making mistakes, and this is all part of learning. We need to set our expectations to match a child's age. And how we do that is that we take the time to learn and offer the right guidance for their age. Do some research, explore what information is out there. If you're having trouble with your child at age 2 or age 3, there's lots of good child development websites that can give you some understanding about what's happening in your child's growth and development and their brain. Remember, we are a child's first teacher. Everything we role model is things that the children are going to take away. We want them to be confident, competent problem solvers. So we're going to look at 10 prevention strategies, and the first prevention strategy is the environment. So how do we set up a space for children that's age appropriate and sets them up for success? Space should support children's behavior and curiosity. So what does that mean? Toys are safe. The space is a place where they can explore. It's part of their daily routine. It's a part of their home or a part of their environment or caregiving environment where they can just be little and play and have fun. Set your home or child care space up so it's actually relaxing for both of you and so that your child can explore without risk or constant negative interactions, i.e., for example, no, don't touch that. How many times do we say that in a day in a very difficult environment? It's really important to have one space in your home that is child-friendly, child-safe until children grow and develop the skills to understand. And that is a critical part of prevention. Set clear, short, consistent, and simple limits. The reason this is so important is that it helps children know what to expect. Limits keep them safe, and it sets the stage for them to grow and understand rules as they get older and they go into school. So if you give children short, simple limits, it helps them with ideas about what to expect from their environment. So for example, with toddlers and preschoolers, they're running inside, you go, inside we walk. However, outside we can use our loud voices and we can run outside. Or tidy up your toys, please, so we can find them next time. It just keeps children safe to know what to expect from their environment. Be positive, use positive language. Third prevention strategy. Use the words, use the gestures, and the approach that you want your children to develop. If you use negative words, your child will follow your lead in their own interactions with other people. So an example of being positive and using positive words is you're reading a book and your child's ruffling the book a little too much. You say to them, let's turn the page gently in our book instead of, you're too rough, you'll wreck it. Other ways to use positive language is just in their day-to-day interactions. Thank you for helping me. Oh, you tidied up, now the floor is safe for everybody to walk. Explaining and using the language that you want them to learn as an approach is very critical as a prevention strategy. Number 4, focus on the behavior and not the child. This is where I'm going to ask parents and adults and caregivers to take a moment to reflect on this. As an adult, how do we feel when someone approaches our mistake as a problem with our character. An example of that, somebody looks at you and thinks you're a bad person for bumping me in the store, or you're not very kind, or you couldn't look me in the eye. You obviously are a bad person. An example of how you change that for a child is when you see a toddler, for example, and they grab a truck. You could say something like, when you grab the truck from your friend, it makes him angry. You're focusing on the behavior. Instead of, you're very rude, you're a bad girl, give it back. If you could see the difference between the negative and the positive way of focusing on the behavior and not the child. You don't want to label the child as a bad individual. They're a child. So remember, young children are learning. They need the guidance in the moment about their behavior and not their character. And the importance of that is that you want to teach them to build positive social skills and confidence with people. Tell children, number 5, tell children what to expect ahead of time instead of asking, especially when there is no choice. Because sometimes if you ask a question and you know you've got to move along, you may get the big no, especially if a child is younger, having fun and really enjoying activities. So if you have to tell children what to expect ahead of time because you know you're getting ready to leave or do something else, or you have to transition, you give them an example like, in 5 more minutes, we'll need to go home. Instead of asking the question, do you want to go home right now? If you ask the question, do you want to go home? And your child's pretty happy, what do you think the answer is going to be? No thanks. So make sure you tell children what to expect ahead of a time instead of asking, especially when you have to move on to another activity. For example, you're playing in the park and you tell the child, listen, after the park, we have to go to the store. We're going to the store. And you have 5 more minutes or 5 more turns on the slide, and then we have to go. Explain to them what your plans are. Prevention tip number 6, provide appropriate choices. Sometimes we give choices when there are no choices for a child in an activity. So for example, you've got to go outside, you've got to go get your mail downstairs in the mailbox, you have to go pick up your child, you have to get them outside because they simply need some fresh air and you've been inside all day. So when you provide appropriate choices and you know there might be a fight, you could say something to your preschooler or toddler like, we need to go outside now. We need to play and get some fresh air, or we need to go pick up your brother. There is no choice, but would you like to wear your boots or your shoes? Let's hope it works. Another example is your child asks you, I want ice cream. You say, well, you can't have ice cream. It's breakfast, but you can have some fruit or milk. That's your choice. And you may get some resistance, but at least it's giving the child a little bit of power in that situation. So, and it might get you a lot easier off to your next activity. Another very important prevention tip, number 7, is to give your children time to respond. Toddlers and preschoolers sometimes have a really hard time changing or transitioning to a new activity. Giving some children time to respond is pretty important. And the reason I'm emphasizing this, working in a parent-child drop-in, is we do a lot of warnings and a lot of preparation for children to move on to different activities, from playing outside to playing on the carpet to moving to snack. So an example we might give is, in 5 more minutes we need to clean up. And as a parent, you might say, in 5 more minutes we need to clean up because we've got to go to the store and get some delicious food, whatever it might be. Give your children some time to respond so they can slow down and come out of their activity. Here's another example of giving children time to respond. You're trying to read a book and you're sitting down quietly and your child is jumping around and being silly. You can use words like, when you're sitting quietly, we can read our book, instead of, if you don't sit down, there is no story. When really you do want to have a chance to read that story with that child. So keep that in mind. Number 8, ignoring silly or minor incidents. My best piece of advice, our best piece of advice, is we do need some tolerance working with preschoolers. Noise, mess, crying is all part of parenting and caregiving. The sort of rule that I think is really important is, as long as our children are safe and they're trying their best out in the world and they're not harming others, we need to take a breath and remember it's a short chapter in life and they will grow up pretty quickly. We'll miss them one day. And take it as a parent who has older children. Prevention tip number 9. Encourage children to ask for help. Children are developing skills and they need to feel safe and secure. Modeling helping skills supports children to problem solve, and problem solving builds resilience. It's very important for school readiness. So an example of that would be your child brings you a page out of a book or a picture they were drawing and it's ripped. And you respond, "Oh no, your page ripped. How shall we fix it?" You give your child a few minutes to respond. If they can't come up with an answer, you could say something like, "We could use glue," or "Should we use glue or tape?" Instead of a lot of responses is, "Oh, you ripped your page. Oh, well, it's broken." We really want children to feel safe and secure and to learn to problem solve. The more skills they have around problem solving, the less they rely on adults to try to do everything as they get older. So it's a really important piece of learning. Prevention tip number 10, be alert and stay close by. Paying attention to your little ones, especially when children are experiencing things for the first time, and I know this from working in an early on center, is an example would be your toddler is new to a program and they're playing together with other children for the first time in the drop-in or maybe a park. It's important to stay close by because you know what things trigger your child and you know where your child may be shy or learning to interact. There's a lot of learning happening in those years. So it's really important that we try to guide them closely and help them get off to a good start. They need to learn the skills first and then be able to go off and practice those skills. And sometimes they don't have those skills if they're in the first time situation that they've never had a chance to be in before. So stay close by, especially when they're toddlers. You are your child's first teacher. The first line of prevention, and I believe this wholeheartedly, is to role model the behavior you want your children to observe and learn as they grow. Remember to use the words, the gestures, the attitudes that you'd like your child to develop and adopt. If they are in an environment where they hear a lot of no and negativity, those gestures are going to be things that they mimic out in the world because they learn through imitation. Mistakes are learning opportunities, and please remember that. Use them as teaching tools to build confidence and not break the child down. If they make mistakes, you say, "Oh, it's all part of learning," and you find ways to problem solve. We, as their child's first teacher, we want to set them up for success. And on a final note for this video, I just want to remind folks to please catch your child in positive moments. We spend a lot of time trying to correct negative behavior. It's more important to acknowledge your child when they're trying to be helpful or kind, experimenting with the spoon for the first time when they're a toddler, learning to use new words. If they hear positive feedback, they will learn to give positive feedback as they grow up. This also builds confidence. On August 7th, I'm going to have a follow-up to this video called Intervention Strategies. But before that video comes up, we encourage parents to please practice as many of these guidance and prevention tips as possible. If you have any questions, please contact any of our staff at the Davenport Perth Early On Child and Family Center. Our phone number is listed here. The information for this presentation came from a link from the government of BC, and it's a beautiful resource if you want to click on the link and look at the whole guide. It's going to give you the intervention tips too, but I'm going to put them in a summary for a video for you. Anyways, thank you very much for tuning in. I really hope these little prevention tips just add a little ease into your day, and please call us anytime. Thank you.